The crystal throne room fell silent as Empress Valeth Sorn rose from her seat, her silver robes cascading like liquid moonlight. Every delegate from the Galactic Concord held their breath, except one. "I refuse this alliance," Valeth declared, her voice cutting through the hall like a blade through silk. "The Sornaya Empire does not bind itself to species who crawl from their birth worlds barely knowing how to light a fire." The human delegation shifted uncomfortably. Ambassador Marcus Cole stood at their head, a man of 43 years with gray threading through his dark hair and a face that had forgotten how to smile decades ago. He did not flinch at her words. He had heard worse. "Your Radiance," began High Chancellor Draven, his forearms spread in supplication. "The Concord has voted. The humans offer. I know what they offer." Valeth descended the steps slowly, each footfall echoing in the vaulted chamber. "Ships, resources, bodies for our wars, as if we were merchants haggling in some frontier bazaar." Marcus watched her approach. The Sornai were tall. She stood nearly 7 feet, with skin like pale amethyst and eyes that shifted between violet and deep indigo. Beautiful by any standard. Cold by any measure. "You mistake our offer, Empress," Marcus said quietly. The room gasped. One did not address the Empress directly without invitation. Her personal guard, the Vethkari, moved their hands to their weapons. Valeth stopped 3 paces from him. "You dare speak to me, unbidden human?" "I dare," Marcus replied, "because you have already decided we are beneath contempt. What more can I lose?" A dangerous silence stretched between them. "What you hear is desperation," Marcus continued, "is simply honesty. Earth has nothing to prove to the galaxy. We came offering partnership, not servitude." Pretty words. Valeth's lip curled. Words from a species whose greatest achievement is surviving their own self-destruction. Yes. Marcus did not look away. "We survived. That is more than many can claim." Something flickered in the Empress's eyes. Irritation, perhaps, or curiosity. She turned to Chancellor Draven, removed the human delegation. "This audience is concluded." As the guards moved forward, Marcus raised his hands in the universal gesture of compliance. His sleeve fell back. Valeth's eyes caught the movement. The scars began at his wrist, pale, twisted tissue that disappeared beneath his sleeve. Not wounds of battle. These were precise, methodical, the marks of someone who had been taken apart piece by piece. "Wait, The single word halted every guard in the chamber. Valeth stepped closer, her eyes fixed on his exposed forearm. "Show me." Marcus hesitated. In the silence, he could hear his own heartbeat. "I gave you a command, Ambassador." Slowly, Marcus unbuttoned his sleeve and rolled it up. The scars continued, a network of white lines crossing his skin like a map of suffering. Some were surgical. Others were not. "The Vivreeks Collective," Valeth said softly. "You were their prisoner for 3 years." Marcus's voice remained steady, but his jaw tightened. "During the siege of New Hokkaido, the Vivreeks do not take prisoners. They made an exception." He met her gaze. "They wanted to understand how humans processed pain. The silence in the throne room had changed. It was no longer hostile. It was something else, something uncomfortable. Chancellor Draven cleared his throat. "Your Radiance, perhaps. Leave us." Valeth did not look at him. "All of you. Leave us." "Your Radiance, protocol demands." I said leave. The chamber emptied in moments. Even the Vethkari withdrew, though their expressions made clear their displeasure. When the great doors closed, Valeth circled Marcus slowly. The Vivreeks Collective was destroyed 8 years ago. Their homeworld burned, their fleet scattered. She stopped before him. "Human ships led that assault. Yes, you?" I commanded the absolution. Marcus finally allowed himself a small, bitter smile. "I learned their language in their laboratories. It helped with targeting." Valeth studied him with an expression he could not read. The Sornai face was subtly different from a human's. The emotions were there, but the translations were imperfect. "You have suffered," she said finally. "Everyone has suffered, Empress. I don't claim a monopoly, and yet you stand here, offering partnership to an empire that has just humiliated you. My pride healed faster than my skin." Marcus rebuttoned his sleeve. "Besides, I was not humiliated. You rejected our terms. That is politics, not insult." Valeth tilted her head. "Most species would demand satisfaction for what I said. Most species haven't learned what actually matters." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "Words are wind, Empress. Actions are stone. You've given me words. I'm still waiting to see what you'll build." For a long moment neither spoke. Then Valeth turned away, walking back toward her throne. You will dine with me tonight, Ambassador. Alone. We will discuss your partnership. Is that a command or an invitation? She paused at the steps, glancing back over her shoulder. For the first time, something that might have been amusement crossed her features. With me, Ambassador, there is rarely a difference. The private dining chamber of the Empress was smaller than Marcus had expected, intimate even. A single table of dark wood sat beneath a crystalline dome that revealed the endless starfield above. The Sornai homeworld had no moon, and the darkness between stars seemed deeper here. Marcus stood at the entrance, dressed in the simple formal attire his aide had provided. Black suit, white shirt, human clothing. He had refused to wear Sornai robes. Valeth was already seated, though she rose when he entered. She had changed from her ceremonial silver into something darker, deep violet that made her amethyst skin seem to glow. Her white hair, which had been elaborately styled for the court, now fell loose past her shoulders. She looked younger, less armored. You came, she said. You commanded. I invited. A flicker of something crossed her face. Sit, Ambassador, daughter. The food will not poison you. I had it tested. Marcus allowed himself a small smile as he took the seat across from her. I appreciate the consideration. It was not consideration. It was practicality. Poisoning Earth's representative would complicate negotiations. Of course. A servant appeared. Marcus had not seen where from, and placed dishes before them. The food was unfamiliar. Dark fruits, pale proteins, something that steamed and smelled of copper and honey. You may eat what is safe for your biology, Valeth said. The servant will indicate. The servant, a young Sornai male with downcast eyes, pointed to several dishes with silent efficiency, then vanished as quietly as he had come. They ate in silence for a time. Marcus had learned patience in places that demanded it. I have read your file, Valeth said eventually. What the Concord knows of you, I expected you would. You were a teacher before the war. Literature. Poetry. She sipped from a crystalline glass, an unusual background for a military commander. There were no military commanders when the Vreeks arrived. Only survivors who learned fast enough. And yet, you rose. You led. You won. I lived. Marcus set down his utensils. The winning was incidental. Valeth studied him. You do not seek glory. Glory is for those who have never seen what it costs. Another silence stretched between them, but it was not uncomfortable. The stars wheeled slowly above them, ancient light from dead suns. Why did you agree to be ambassador? Valeth asked. A man with your record could have any position on Earth. A quiet life. Safety. Marcus considered the question. Because Earth needed someone who understood what we were asking for. And what we were offering. Which is everything. He met her gaze. We're offering everything, Empress. Our ships, our resources, our futures. We don't have the luxury of pride. The Vreeks may be gone, but there are others. Humanity cannot survive alone. And what do you ask in return? A seat at the table. A chance to prove we belong. Marcus paused. A chance to matter. Valeth's expression shifted. Something vulnerable flickered there before vanishing. You speak of your species. But what do I want, Marcus Cole? It was the first time she had used his name. I want to believe that survival was worth the cost, he said quietly. That what I became, what we all became, wasn't for nothing. For a long moment, Valeth did not respond. Then she reached across the table and touched his hand, a light brush of fingers, there and gone. I have ruled the Sornai Empire for 112 of your years, she said. In that time, I have taken no consort, made no alliances of the heart. My court believes me incapable of such weakness. Marcus did not move. And are you? I believe so. Her eyes met his. I am no longer certain. The admission hung between them, fragile as glass. I am not what your court would consider appropriate, Marcus said carefully. Human. Scar. Without rank or title in your hierarchy. No, Valeth agreed. You are not. Then why? Because you looked at me in that throne room, she interrupted, and you did not see the Empress. You saw a woman making a mistake. She stood, moving to the window where the stars blazed cold and distant. No one has looked at me like that in decades. They see power. They see threat. They see opportunity. She turned to face him. You saw a person. Marcus rose slowly. You array a person. Crowns don't change that. Tell that to my court. Her voice was bitter. Tell that to the dozens of species who bow and scrape and plot my downfall. Is that why you refused the alliance? Not because of Earth, but because of them? Valeth's silence was answer enough. Marcus crossed the room to stand beside her. The stars reflected in her violet eyes. I understand isolation, he said quietly. I spent 3 years learning that the universe is vast and cold, and doesn't care about any of us. He turned to face her. But I also learned that the only way through darkness is with someone beside you. Pretty words again, Ambassador. Then let me show you instead. He extended his hand, palm up, scarred and imperfect. Let me prove that Earth can be beside you. That Jade can be beside you. Not as a servant or a subordinate, but as an equal. Valeth looked at his hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, she took it. The news of the Empress's renewed negotiations with Earth spread through the Sornai court like wildfire through dry grass. Within days, the whispers had become open murmurs. Within a week, the murmurs had become challenges. This is unprecedented, Lord Kael Vantress declared to the assembled council of pillars. His silver robes marked him as one of the highest-ranked nobles in the empire, second only to the imperial family itself. The Empress entertains a human in private audiences. She dines with him. She walks the gardens with him, alone, without guard or chaperone. The Empress's personal affairs are not the council's concern, High Chancellor Draven replied, though even he looked uncomfortable. Her personal affairs become our concern when they threaten the stability of the empire. Kael's voice rose. The Vantress bloodline has served the throne for 9 generations. We have sent our daughters and sons as potential consorts, only to be refused. And now she shows favor to a scarred creature from a backwater world. Marcus stood at the edge of the chamber, invited but not welcomed. He had insisted on attending when Valeth informed him of the emergency council session. She had resisted. They will try to use this against you, she had warned. Let them try, he had replied. Now, watching the hatred in Lord Kael's eyes, Marcus wondered if he had been too confident. Ambassador Cole. Kael turned to face him directly. You have spent considerable time with Her Radiance these past weeks. Perhaps you can explain to the council the nature of your relationship. The word dripped with contempt. Marcus stepped forward. The Empress and I have discussed matters of alliance, trade, and mutual defense. We have also spoken of matters more personal. He kept his voice level. I will not pretend those conversations did not happen, Lord Kael. But I will not discuss their content either. Some things are not for councils. You see, Kael gestured broadly. He admits it. A human, a species barely out of their cradle, presumes to court the Empress of the Sornai. I presumed nothing. Marcus felt his old calm settling over him, the quiet that had sustained him through worse than political theater. The Empress invited me. I accepted. That is my only presumption. You are not worthy. Enough. Valeth's voice cut through the chamber. She had been seated on her throne throughout the exchange, watching with an expression Marcus had learned to recognize as carefully controlled fury. Now she rose, and something in her bearing made even Kael step back. Lord Kael Vantress, she said, descending the steps slowly. You speak of worthiness, of bloodlines, of tradition. She stopped before him. Tell me, when the Vrix Collective threatened our borders 40 years ago, which bloodline held the Keyleth Pass for 3 days against a force 10 times their number? Kael's face tightened. Your Radiance. It was not the Vantress, Valeth continued. It was the 3rd Common Legion. Soldiers without noble blood, without titles, without anything but courage and the will to die for their people. She turned, addressing the full council. This man, she gestured to Marcus, commanded the fleet that destroyed the Vrix Collective. He spent 3 years in their torture chambers and emerged to lead his people to victory. What have you done, Lord Kael, except inherit your father's title and spend it on your ambition? The silence in the chamber was absolute. The humans offer us alliance, Valeth continued. Real alliance, not the simpering treaties we have made with species who fear us, but partnership with people who have looked into the darkness and chosen to fight. Ambassador Cole is the first person in a century who has spoken to me as an equal rather than a supplicant. Her voice softened, but lost none of its steel. I will not apologize for recognizing his worth. Kael's hand moved to his ceremonial blade. Then I invoke the right of Kethvar. If this human wishes to stand beside the Empress, let him prove his worth in combat. Marcus felt the room shift. The right of Kethvar, Chancellor Draven said carefully, has not been invoked in 200 years. It has not been needed. Kael drew his blade, a curved weapon of shimmering metal that hummed with energy. But the law is clear. Any challenger to the imperial favor may be tested. If the human refuses, he acknowledges his unworthiness. If he accepts and falls, the matter is settled. Kale's smile was cold. And if he somehow wins, well, that will prove nothing except that humans are even more savage than we thought. Every eye turned to Marcus. You don't have to do this, Valeth said quietly. Her face was pale. Kale is one of the finest duelists in the Empire. This is a test. Marcus unbuttoned his jacket and handed it to a nearby servant. You told me on the first night that actions are what matter. That words are wind. He began rolling up his sleeves, revealing the network of scars that covered his forearms. Let me show them, Valeth. Let me show them what a human will do for something that matters. Marcus, trust me. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then, slowly, she stepped back. Lord Kale smiled as a servant brought a second blade. Do you even know how to hold a weapon, human? Marcus accepted the blade. It was lighter than he expected, balanced for quick, precise movements. The Vreeks had taught him about blades. They had taught him many things. I know enough, Marcus said. The first strike came fast, faster than Marcus had anticipated. He barely deflected it, stumbling back as Kale pressed his advantage. The second strike opened a cut along Marcus's arm. The third would have taken his head if he hadn't thrown himself sideways. The council watched in cold satisfaction. This was what they had expected. Kale laughed. Is this the strength of humanity? Is this what the Empress has chosen? Marcus rose slowly. Blood dripped from his arm, but his expression remained calm. The cold had settled over him fully now, the quiet place where pain became information, and fear became focus. You're testing me, he said. Trying to see what I'll do when I'm losing. I'm killing you, Kale replied. There's a difference. Yes. Marcus shifted his grip on the blade. There is. When Kale struck again, Marcus didn't try to block. He stepped into the blow, letting the blade slice along his ribs as he drove his own weapon upward. The point stopped a breath from Kale's throat. The chamber erupted. He cheated. No defense. The human is mad. Enough. Valeth's voice silenced them all. She crossed the floor to where Marcus stood, blood soaking his shirt, blade still pressed to Kale's neck. Lower your weapon, Ambassador. Marcus held position for 1 heartbeat. 2, Almo. 2. Then he stepped back, letting the blade fall. The right of Kethvar is satisfied, Valeth declared. The human stands. The challenge is answered. She turned to face the council. Does anyone else wish to test Ambassador Cole's worthiness? No one spoke. Valeth moved to Marcus's side, her hand finding his. She did not seem to care that it was slick with blood. Then this council is dismissed, she said. All of you, leave, now. As the chamber emptied, Marcus swayed. The cold was fading, and with it, the things it had kept at bay. That was stupid, Valeth said softly, steadying him. Magnificent, but stupid. I've been called worse. Marcus managed a weak smile. Did it work? Valeth touched his face. A gentle brush of fingers along his jaw. You could have died. But I didn't. You could have been wrong. But I wasn't. She pulled him closer, her forehead resting against his. Why? She whispered. Why risk everything for this? For me? Marcus closed his eyes. Because some things are worth the cost. Because you looked at me in that throne room and saw a person, not a refugee from a broken world. Because... He paused, struggling for words. Because I spent 3 years learning that survival isn't enough. There has to be something more, someone more. Valeth's breath caught. I don't know what this is, Marcus continued. I don't know where it leads. But I know I would rather die trying to reach you than live safely in a universe where I never tried. She kissed him then, soft and fierce, and desperate all at once. Her hands tangled in his hair, careful of his wounds but unwilling to let go. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were bright with tears he would never acknowledge. You impossible, infuriating human, she murmured. I prefer determined, Marcus replied. Of course you do. The treaty signing took place 3 months later, in the same throne room where Valeth had first refused the alliance. But everything had changed. The Galactic Concord delegates filled the galleries, 100 species watching as history unfolded. The Sornai court stood in formal ranks, their silver robes gleaming under crystal lights. And at the center of it all, 2 figures faced each other across the ceremonial table. Valeth wore the imperial crown for the first time since her coronation, a circlet of woven starlight that cast shifting patterns across her features. Her violet robes swept the floor, embroidered with the symbols of every world under her protection. Marcus wore the uniform of the Earth Defense Coalition, simple black with silver insignia. His scars were visible above his collar, and he made no effort to hide them. We stand today, Valeth began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, to formalize an alliance that many believed impossible. An alliance between the Sornai Empire and the people of Earth. She paused, letting murmurs ripple through the crowd. 3 months ago, I refused this treaty. I declared humanity unworthy of partnership with our ancient empire. Her gaze found Marcus. I was wrong. The chamber fell silent. I was wrong, Valeth repeated, because I judged by standards that no longer serve us. I measured worth by bloodline and tradition, by power and pride. I failed to see what was standing in front of me. She stepped around the table to stand beside Marcus. Ambassador Cole taught me that worth is not inherited. It is earned. Every day, every choice, every scar. She reached down and took his hand, publicly, deliberately, before the watching thousands. This alliance is not merely political, she continued. It is personal. As of this day, Ambassador Marcus Cole holds my favor. My trust. She hesitated for just a moment, and Marcus squeezed her hand. My heart. The chamber erupted. Some applauded. Others shouted in protest. Lord Kael'Vantress, standing at the edge of the noble ranks with a visible scar on his throat, said nothing at all. Marcus stepped forward, raising his free hand for silence. Gradually, impossibly, the crowd obeyed. I came to this empire as a representative of my people, he said. A refugee species, yes. Survivors of a war that nearly ended us. I expected rejection, contempt, perhaps violence. He smiled slightly. I found all three. Scattered laughter eased some of the tension. But I also found something unexpected. I found a leader willing to look past her assumptions. A woman willing to risk everything for the possibility of connection. He turned to face Valeth fully. You asked me once what I wanted. What I truly wanted, beyond politics and treaties, and the survival of my species. Valeth nodded, her eyes never leaving his. I wanted to believe that suffering has meaning, Marcus said. That what I endured, what we all endured, was for something. That the universe isn't just darkness and cold and species destroying each other for resources. He reached up and touched her face, thumb brushing along her cheekbone. I found my answer, he said softly. Not in treaties, not in alliances, in you. He kissed her then, in front of the assembled Concord, in front of her court, in front of 100 worlds who had never seen anything like it. It was not a political gesture. It was a promise. When they parted, Valeth's composure had cracked. Tears tracked down her cheeks, and she made no attempt to hide them. The formal treaty will be signed tomorrow, she announced, her voice unsteady but strong. Tonight, we celebrate. Not just an alliance, but a union. 2 peoples, 2 worlds. She gripped Marcus's hand tighter. 2 hearts. As the chamber dissolved into chaos and celebration, Marcus pulled her close. Was that too much? He murmured. Absolutely. Valeth smiled through her tears. My council will be drafting formal protests for months. Regrets? None. She kissed him again. Briefer but no less fierce. You have ruined me, Marcus Cole. I will never be able to pretend to be cold and untouchable again. Good. He held her close, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. Faster than a human's, stronger than he had expected. I've been cold long enough for both of us. Around them, the future stretched uncertain and vast, filled with challenges neither could predict. There would be plots and betrayals, wars and losses, the 1,000 complications of binding 2 civilizations together. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, standing in the light of 1,000 stars, an Empress who had forgotten how to feel, and a human who had survived the unsurvivable held each other. And for the first time in longer than either could remember, neither of them was alone.